it's mighty. It's small but 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 it's mighty. Do you hear it creeping up behind it? It's a ninja. Do you see it moving through the night? It's a ninja. Jumping off a roof, crawling through a hole, walking up the walls, running on all fours. It's small but it's mighty. 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 It's small but it's mighty.
Before the world learned to rule through fear, there were those who learned to rule themselves. You're listening to Tiny Ninja, The Way of the Small Blade, a story of restraint in an age of tyranny, discipline in a world addicted to noise, and a quiet warrior carrying the last hope of ancient lineage. This is a spoken word story, a myth unfolding one step at a time. Begin listening. Before empires learned to conquer, there existed a lineage that learned to endure. They were known as the Small Ones. They did not rule kingdoms or command armies. They did not build monuments or demand remembrance. Their strength was never meant to be visible. It was meant to be precise, applied only when balance began to fracture. The Small Ones believed domination corrupted the spirit. Restraint refined it. They trained their bodies to disappear, their minds to slow time, and their awareness to extend beyond what could be seen. Where others reacted, they observed. Where others shouted, they listened. For generations, they protected the unseen order of the world, while empires rose and fell, unaware that anything had ever guided their survival, until silence itself became dangerous. Tyranny does not fear armies first. It fears what cannot be tracked, intimidated, or controlled. The Small Ones were labeled unnatural, then dangerous, then treasonous. Their teachings were outlawed, their masters hunted, their names erased from memory. History was rewritten carefully. By the time the Empire declared victory, myths were all that remained. All except one. His name, if he ever had one, no longer mattered. They called him Tiny Ninja. Tiny Ninja stood on the edge of a stone rooftop overlooking a city that did not know he existed. Below him, lanterns flickered unevenly, casting long shadows through narrow streets. The city had learned to survive by staying quiet. He wore traditional ninja garments, dark, functional, without insignia. There was nothing about his appearance that demanded attention. That was intentional. At his waist rested a strip of red cloth. It was the only thing he wore that carried color. The cloth had been passed down through generations, worn by masters who no longer breathed and students who never lived long enough to teach. It was not a symbol of defiance. It was a reminder that survival carried responsibility. Tiny Ninja was small in stature, easily dismissed by those who equated size with strength. But his movements carried discipline, refined over years of relentless training. He had been shaped by masters whose names were erased from history. Masters who taught him arts the Empire failed to fully destroy. They taught him that power was not a weapon. Power was a burden. From above, Tiny Ninja observed Imperial enforcers dragging a man through the street. The man resisted weakly, not from guilt, but exhaustion. His crime was simple. He had spoken against the Empire in public. Truth, spoken aloud, was no longer tolerated. Windows closed, footsteps retreated. Survival demanded distance. Tiny Ninja remained still. Intervention was not instinctual. It was deliberate. He counted his breaths. 1, 2, 3. Now for a mid-episode break. This story continues because it is hurt. If Tiny Ninja resonates with you, take a moment to follow the podcast and share it with someone who understands that strength doesn't need to be loud. Now back to the story. Tiny Ninja moved without haste. He did not rush. He did not hesitate. The space between moments seemed to narrow around him, folding inward as his body aligned with intention. The enforcers never saw him approach. They only experienced the instant where control left their limbs and consciousness surrendered to darkness. Tiny Ninja did not always kill. He understood death was permanent, connection was not. The man fled without looking back. Tiny Ninja watched until the city absorbed him completely. There was no gratitude exchanged, no explanation offered. That had never been the point. Balance had been restored. That was enough. Far from the city, within stone halls built to amplify authority and suppress dissent, officials of the Empire gathered in uneasy silence. Reports had been circulating, dismissed at first as exaggeration, then reconsidered as patterns emerged, a figure moving too precisely to track. Enforcers found unconscious, but alive. Witnesses describing a flash of red cloth. The elders exchanged knowing glances. They remembered the small ones. They remembered why fear had driven them to erase an entire lineage. Orders were issued quietly. Specialized trackers were released. Hunters trained not for armies, but for anomalies. If the bloodline had survived, it would be ended decisively. There would be no second failure. Back above the city, Tiny Ninja sensed the shift. It was subtle, but unmistakable. The tightening of unseen threads. The alignment of forces moving toward him. The masters had warned him. There would come a moment when the world remembered, when silence alone would no longer be enough. Tiny Ninja adjusted the red cloth at his waist, feeling its familiar weight steady him. He did not feel fear. He felt clarity. If he was the last of the small ones, then endurance was no longer sufficient. He would have to stand. The world rarely notices what protects it. Empires fall loudly. Tyranny announces itself, but guardians move in silence. Tiny Ninja does not seek recognition, only balance. Until next time, walk quietly, observe deeply, and remember, the smallest blade guided by restraint can shape the fate of empires.